Hello lovely people, welcome to this video. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Shen and this is going to be a brief, hopefully, November wrap up of what I read. And this month I read 3 books, so I'll just be discussing those a bit and what I thought of them and what they're about without spoilers. And yeah. But before I do start that part of the video, I want to preface it by briefly mentioning, not mentioning, um, encouraging you, if you are watching still, to keep your eye on what's happening in Palestine and to not shut it out. I know a lot of people get fatigued or depressed by keeping up what's going on, but if you can, well, I would say keep an eye on what's happening, look at Palestinian creators online and see what they're saying and listen to them. And if you can, go to a protest, a demonstration. Yeah, just don't ignore it. That's just a little thing I want to say. So the first book I read was Timeshelter. And Timeshelter is written by Georgi Gospodinov. It won the International Booker Prize this year, and it was the first book from Bulgaria to do so, so it's quite nice for them. And the book is about a clinic for the past, which is a very interesting premise. And I don't really read books having to do with memory and time that often. I rated it, I believe, 4 stars on Storygraph, and that's because I enjoyed how it made me think a bit further whilst reading it, but also after reading it. And it just raised a lot of questions for me, like how much can we trust our own memory, and how far would you go to kind of get yourself out of your reality, especially when you're not happy with what's going on in your own life or in the world. And that's why I liked it. But I do have to say that the narration style can be a bit messy at times, but I felt like it might have been on purpose, as our main narrator is actually unnamed and you question his identity from time to time as well. So I don't know if anyone has read this book, please, well, for people who've read this book, would you say that's an unreliable narrator? Because that's the feeling I got when I was reading it, that it was a bit unreliable. So yeah, that's what I thought of that. I don't have many other thoughts about it, honestly. I feel like I'm still processing it, even though it's been around a month now that I've read it. But I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting book to have read. That's not the loudest recommendation, but I did enjoy it, I promise. The next book I read, if I remember correctly, I believe it was The Morisaki Bookstore by Satoshi Yagisawa. And this book, I rated 3.5 stars, I believe. I enjoyed reading it more just because it was a bit more accessible. It was less energy consuming to read. So if you're trying to read something when you're very busy or you're a bit mentally exhausted, I feel like this would be a better fit than Timeshelter. And enjoyed it because it felt a bit like a second coming of age, or maybe even the coming of age of someone who's a bit of a late bloomer, which I feel like I am sometimes. So that part resonated with me. And it's basically about Takako, who, don't think this is a spoiler, has a really nasty breakup because she was dating someone at her job, and then it wasn't cute. It wasn't nice. I'm not gonna go into too many details because I don't know how many I should disclose. But she ends up being single and unemployed and just very depressed, just sleeping the whole day every day. And then there's an intervention by her mom, and she ends up staying in the second hand bookstore of her uncle, who she hasn't spoken to in a very long time. And through the story, you kind of see how her relationship with herself changes, but also how her relationship with her uncle changes. And it's a type of demystification of her uncle because she has such a limited view of who he actually is at the beginning, and then she discovers more about him and about his relationship, for example, with his wife, who we get to learn a bit more about in the second part of the book, which was also very interesting. I Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's very soft book, I would say. I liked it. I think it's sweet, to put it simply. Oh, the narration style. Forgot about that part. The narration style for me surprised me because normally I don't enjoy first person narrative books. Something about it keep just prevents me from immersing myself in it. But this one did quite nicely. It was not excessive in its uses usage of first person pronouns, for example. So that was enjoyable. And yeah, the third book and last book I read was um, Book of Night, Holly Black. And after having had some time pass, I changed my rating on Storygraph from 3.5 to 3 stars because whilst I enjoyed the premise of this world where shadows are alive, you could say, you can quicken your shadow. So, but not everyone can do it because it's a magic aspect that not everyone possesses, but some people do want to possess, such as there's the main character Charlie's sister, whose name Posey. I think that's correct. Um, Even though you have this magic system in place, which is interesting, I feel like it kind of veered away from my main interests in a way. So the narrator Charlie is very familiar to me because if you've read YA, she'll be familiar to you. But I enjoyed reading her point of view. I did. I think she was a nice character to see the story through. I would have liked some more chapters from her boyfriend's perspective as well. I think that would have been interesting. But also, the limited point of view we get from him does make sense and does add to the tension of the book. So I won't complain about it. But just the ending felt a bit rushed to me in a way that makes me feel like I won't pick up the sequel. I think the story is promising and it is interesting, but it's done in a way that it's setting up the series or a trilogy. I don't know how many books it's going to be, maybe it's a duology. It's setting it up in a way that I'm not interested in. So I enjoyed reading it, but I won't be picking up the sequel, to put it shortly. But that does not mean I don't think other people will enjoy it. So, Book of Night, Holly Black. And that's it, actually. That's the 3 books I read, which I'm already happy with, honestly. It's been a busy time with writing my thesis. Um, yeah, I'm hoping that December will be a more fruitful reading month. Also because I still kind of want to finish my reading goal, like complete my reading goal of this year, which is 30 books, which 30? 30 books, which I think to a lot of people who read, maybe no, you know what? I think that's incorrect. So I'm gonna just not finish that sentence. I feel like it's manageable. 30 books, right? But during the summer, I just didn't read for some reason. I had a reading slump. I didn't I read one poem. That was it. Um, so right now, I think I'm 8 or 9 books away from my reading goal, and I'm not very sure if I can do that in 1 month. And I don't want to read only short books just to meet the goal. So we'll see. Yeah. But yeah. If you have any book recommendations based on this video, or if you have any thoughts, please share them because I am curious to hear about them. And I hope you have a very lovely week, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.